Hello, and a warm welcome to the last episode, which is episode 4 on the Livelihood and Coffee webinar series from the Barista Guild. I'm going to share my screen. We'll also give a couple of minutes or seconds for people to join. Where's my screen sharing? Yes. All right. This is the first slide. Here we go. It's good to have you all here.
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh, cool. Nice. Is it showing my screen? It's not, right? Oh, yes. No, it is. Yes. So a very warm welcome to this last episode on Livelihoods in Coffee. This episode, or this entire webinar series, is powered by the Coffee Retail Summit Resource Library. This is a resource library that has been designed and created by the Specialty Coffee Association, which the Barista Guild is a part of. It's all free content, it's videos, it's podcasts, it's also articles that all evolves around how coffee is being retail spaces, how you can improve your retail businesses, ideas. So yeah, do make sure, if you haven't seen it, there was also live events. You can rewatch all the content that's there. It's on the website. Make sure to check it out, and that's on retail.sci.coffee. That is the Coffee Retail Summit Resource Library. Very happy that it's all accessible and free content for everybody to check out. And today's episode, which is the last episode on our series around the livelihood in coffee, is on different approaches to living wage and living salary in coffee. So it's a roundtable conversation. And I'm very happy Paco and I will host this session, and I'm very happy that we are joined by Andrew, Matt, and Carlos. And yes, I think we can start right away by just introducing yourselves. And just one tiny thing for everybody that's watching, it's also meant as an interactive conversation, right? So of course, Paco and I did prepare a couple of questions to get our conversation started. But there is a questions tab in the GoToWebinar application app. You can always type in your questions. We'll pick them up. We'll bring them into the conversation. Yes, so very much looking forward also to your questions out there. Yes, let's get started. Let's just go down the list I created there on the slide. So a very warm welcome, Andrew. Hi. Do you want to just introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, yeah. My name's Andrew Kopplin. I co-own a coffee shop and roastery in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is in upper Midwest of the United States here. We have one cafe, and then we roast coffee mostly for that cafe. So it's not a big wholesale operation. And I guess the points of the cafe that kind of brought us here, it's we in 2005 or 2000, we opened in 2006, and then in 2015 we started. We always paid above market, whatever that means for wages. We tried to pay more, but in 2015 we started kind of making a concerted effort towards what livable might be. And some of the things we did was we got rid of tips and incorporated a higher wage. And then in 2017 we added sick and safe time to our for our employees, and then also then 2018 we went to $15 an hour for all of our employees, and that's kind of been, I'm sure we'll get more into the details behind that, but that's been kind of the progress. Currently our cafe is closed, so we actually don't have any employees right now. We just have the roastery going and the online store, but we're definitely thinking a lot about it because we're hoping to open again in the fall.
Yeah, fantastic. Good to have you. Thank you. Matt, hi, welcome. Good to have you.
Hi, yeah, thanks for the invitation. My name is Matt.
I'm co-owner at the Quijote Kaffee, which is a collectively run direct trade roastery. We purchase coffee from the same partner associaciones and cooperatives every year. We also work with a minimum price, which is at the moment $3 per libra for Arabica and for washed Arabica, and $2.80 for washed Robusta. Also, we all earn the same. We've been working towards this. And now, last year, we managed to reach our maximum, which is the Hamburg average wage. So the average wage in the city is also what we pay ourselves. And yeah, we can live and work very well with this. And of course, the goal is coffee is one of the products that really has the power to make this possible for all the people in the value chain, which is the long-term goal, of course. Yeah. We import coffee, we roast coffee, and we do all of this transparently. And this is what we do, yes.
Yeah, fantastic, cool.
Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely, yes, good to have you.
Thanks.
Carlos, hi, good to have you.
Hi, good morning here in Mexico. I am Carlos de la Torre. I work at my company, Café con Jiribilla. It's a small roastery in Mexico City. We roast about 16 to 20 tons every year. It's kind of small. My main role here is the green buying and roasting profiling. We make direct trade. We have the fortune of having the producers 6 hours in a driving journey, pretty close. So that makes things easier for us, and we try to take advantage of that and make some sort of better than fair trade. We try to pay good prices for coffee and be a competitive roastery, not just for local roasters, but also for international buyers. For example, we try to pay the same or even more than the international buyers. We have a minimum price for our coffees surrounding 450 USD per pound, which is kind of high. Even for Mexican coffees, it's crazy, and for a local buyer, it's kind of pretty high and complicated to put out in the market. But we use competitions and marketing strategies to make our community to understand the value of their own product, because in producing countries it's very common that you can have access to super cheap coffee, and to make people have a different mindsetting about how to appreciate coffee, it's kind of complicated, but we have a bunch of tools to make that happen.
Absolutely, cool, good to have you. And Paco, hi. Do you also want to introduce yourself?
Hello. Yeah, sure. So Andrew, Matt, Carlos, thank you for being here. I'm Francisco Paco Godinho. I'm based in Tijuana, Mexico. I'm part of the Barista Guild Leadership Council, and thank you all for being here. So if you got any questions for Andrew, Matt, or Carlos, please send them on the question box on the app, and we'll start this conversation going.
Absolutely. I did forget to introduce myself, so I just wanted to say briefly hi as well. I'm Richard. I work for the SCA full-time. I'm the guild's director, which basically means I work with all the 3 different guilds we have, and in this case, particularly with Paco and the Barista Guild on the webinar series, for example. Yes, I'm very happy to be here, just hosting and being part of the conversation in that way. Paco, do you have a question to kickstart our conversation?
Yes. I would like to start, if we could start at the same order, Andrew, Matt, and then Carlos. I would like to start with asking you guys what made you decide to change the salary, to pay higher salaries to your employees. Andrew, what was the starting point? Did the employees reach you? It was something that you guys decided by yourselves? how was the like process of deciding?
Yeah, well, let's see. It's kind of baked into the shop. So I opened the shop, let's see, it was 2006. I was 24 when it opened, and hired a lot of my friends. And I would say the shop still kind of has that flavor to it. Like we work at the shop, and when I say we, as my co-owner is also my spouse. So it's both of us. It's a family-owned shop. So I guess that's kind of why it felt like we're there with the employees. We're working with them. They're our friends. So that I think that's mostly where it came. Also, like sustainability is kind of a part of the shop. So we also, with buying like milk, we go for local milk. So I don't think it was like an odd conversation to start, which is why it was always like paying above market. But then I think in like 2015, it was like, well, what does that mean to pay livable? Not just like more than they could make down the street. And also, I was getting older. I had kids, and so livable meant something different to me than when I was 24. So I think that's how the conversation evolved, is like, oh, livable when you're 24 means very different than when you're 30 and have two kids. And so having a real, more concise conversation about it. But it started from the idea that we're there with them, I think.
Yeah, it definitely changed you the perspective and the ways you see things, having a family and looking at others. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I hope to appreciate that perspective also one day. But I joined Quijote after it was founded. It was founded as a collective in 2010 or 11 by Steffi and Pingo, and the equality is also part of Quijote's DNA. So the aim, it's the salary was the same for everybody working here from the start, and getting it to the level where it is now was a process, but it's always been the goal to, whenever it's possible, to step it up and get into the direction where it's aimed. Yes, this is it.
So it
Here,
became like pretty basic conversation for you guys, Matt.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, it was like a normal conversation for you. Like it was normal to start talking about this.
Yes, it's since it's in the concept already. Since it's collectively, it's a workers-owned roastery. There is no such thing as a pay difference. Also, the people, whenever we hire people for help, just to help us out, it's also the same wage. Since we believe that the kind of work you do, some work brings a lot of money in, some work only produces cost, but still, of course, we all want to be able to meet each other on eye level, and that's why it goes without saying, so to speak, or it is understood that we agree keep paying ourselves the same is the way to go.
Want to go
Which
ahead,
is the
Carlos?
first time actually since I'm in coffee that I experienced this. So I'm not saying this is completely normal, but here this is part of the DNA.
Want to go ahead, Carlos?
yeah, this is uh, my story is kind of a mix of both Matt's and Andrew's. I started my coffee shop actually at the same age of Andrew's, maybe 20. I have 22 maybe when I started, and that's weird because I was in college. I've never had a job yet, so I didn't know what to expect as an employee or what to give as an employer. So I need to learn on the way, and I have to start this conversation with the employees. So I was like always asking, how much do you make in your last job, and that kind of rates satisfy your needs, or you need more. So it's kind of have a conversation with them, just to make clear that your staff is. I used to think your staff is happy, but no, your staff doesn't need to be happy. I think maybe what I was looking for, it was to make them like uh, have peace, like uh, you cannot have a barista working a shift worrying about how is he going to move to his home, what's gonna eat in the night, where he's gonna sleep. So you need to take out of their minds all the worries about li livelihood, uh, with a good wage. And so since the first employee I have until right now, yesterday I was having the same conversation with the roaster. We always talk about our needs and how we can improve. I really enjoy making them part of the path we're gonna build, follow maybe, uh, asking how we can maybe grow to provide better conditions to everyone, always listening them, because as I say, I am not a professional of business, and also I have no experience as an employee, so I try to learn from them. And on the other hand, we do have different salaries for every role in the company, but that's because um, I really appreciate how each one of them have to invest time, money, and effort to develop the tools and the abilities that makes them capable to cover the responsibilities and tasks of their own roles. So I think that needs to have a difference, or make a difference, just to feel that uh, that maybe reward kind of thing about the path of each one on the coffee to grow professionally. I don't know. Yeah.
Hmm. Are those difficult conversations, or like, or do people have like really difficulties expressing their needs?
It's very difficult. Just like Andrew, I turned I have a kid last year, and that changes my mind again, because I used to think about my employees need to have all the needs covered. But now, when I have my kid, I sat with my wife and asked her, "Hey, what if one of our employees want to have a kid? It's pretty expensive, so we need to change things again." And I sat with one of the roasters and have a coffee and asked him, "Hey, bro, how much do you need to earn to cover your rent, your maybe your transportation, your food, your cell phone, your basics, and also have money to maybe save some money in the bank, have some maybe uh, go out for a drink, or maybe eat at a fancy restaurant. How much do you need to explore your own industry?" That's very interesting how some professionals are not able to enjoy their own product. I mean, try to think, if the baristas can pay for 2 espressos each day of the month with their salaries. Maybe in Mexico that's like 2,100 pesos, which for most of baristas is half of their wage monthly. So it's weird. They cannot even drink their own product, and that's crazy.
Crazy. That's crazy.
It's a tough conversation, but you just need to listen.
Yeah, we went through that conversation. I mean, I had one employee with 2 kids, and when we did sick and safe time, um, it's the same thing. It's just a rate. They accumulate sick time at a certain amount when they work. But of course, they needed sick time for if their kid was sick to stay home too. So suddenly they need more sick time. They needed more sick, like 3 times as much sick time because they have 3 people to cover with that sick time, right? Yeah, and so especially in the conversation of like livable, what is livable? It depends on the situation that you're in.
Yeah,
I think it's so
absolutely.
interesting to have like different perspectives from people around the world. Um, since Carlos and I am based in Mexico, for everyone that's watching, the average salary is gonna go between $200 to $400 a month. I will say that's on the border where I live.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting. And I have this other question: how do you make it sustainable to the business? Since it's a business, it not only has to make money, but also has to make money to make sustainable the wages, the salaries you're paying to your employees. So Carlos talked about a marketing strategy, using the competitions as a strategy. How about you guys, Andrew, Matt, and if you wanna um, go further on that, Carlos, as well?
I'll let Matt go first if he wants, or
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. For us, the main way to make this sustainable and make it part of our everyday work is transparency. We just communicate the need that we have for the price we pay for the material, the prices we pay ourselves. Also, we have a little extra if people become parents. There's a little extra, and all of this we communicate to our clients, and actually we make the experience that they're happy to pay the price that it costs because they can see and understand how the price comes to be, and then they're glad to purchase and enjoy the product because they want something clean and sustainable.
That's a really
I
straightforward answer. Yeah.
yeah, I would say this is actually like one of the areas we struggled with quite a bit, and maybe continue to, because I resonated with what Carlos was saying, which is like we got trapped, or I don't know, trapped is the right word, but we're struggling with the idea of how to, because we did it to do the right thing, because we're working with these people, much like Carlos was saying, like, I don't know, like you don't like sitting next to someone who's your friend who's stressed out because they can't afford rent. So like it's a natural conversation. So to us, it was you got to pay people the right wage because it's the right thing to do. And then it felt, and this might just be our personality, it felt really awkward to use that as a marketing. Like we felt it difficult to market doing the right thing, but our prices were quite a bit more expensive than our like people in our area because we were paying more. So it became incumbent to spend time and energy and frankly money on marketing that we were doing the right thing. And I would say that was a knot that we have still yet to untie and figure out how to figure out, because it felt like I would rather drive that marketing money back into the wages, because $15 an hour is good, but in Minnesota here, it's not, unless you're, maybe if you're single, it's livable, but it's still really low. There's still like, most studies show that like a real livable wage is more like 19. So I mean, it's kind of like I said, it's all different for like different situations. But so I think that's something like I came to this conversation where I'm not sure yet, and we're not sure yet how to like, how do you market doing the right thing? And we've become more politically active in our community because of that, because this feels like a situation where the coffee shop, the business alone can't solve this situation. So that's where we're at right now. But yeah, that was kind of my long answer.
Before Carlos starts, Matt and Andrew, do you think the market actually values that you pay fairly, that you pay fairly to the producer, and also the question is for Carlos.
In our case, if I may go first, I would say it's the main point of sale.
How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, to an extent, I guess. It's not clear to me that the market values it enough, if that's fair. Like, we get people who come to us definitely because they see us as a business that treats their workers fairly, but I think the question's still out whether the market can solve it enough. Can it drive wages up to 19, for example? Can it? I'm not going to say no, and I'm not going to say yes. I'm going to say the jury's out, maybe.
So, okay, I have three things to say, so I need to order in my head. But starting at the first point, I do think people appreciate the price we pay for coffee, but sometimes, like an example, we pay too much, maybe. So people kind of freak out when they see the prices, the final price of the bag, because we're paying also like same as Matt in Hamburg, but Mexico it's other planet. so paying a bag of coffee around 12 USD is kind of weird. It's not very common here in Mexico City, but we use like our maybe, as I say, the prestige we won with competitions and with all that kind of stuff to make the people accept that and value that. But it's a hard work. Next, I do think people appreciate that in coffee because it's like they can see at the price of the final bag. But in the case of the salary of the baristas, you don't put a label on the barista with the salary. So it makes a difference in the community. We need to understand that our coffee shops survive on a community of regulars and mostly regular customers, which hold conversations with baristas. Sometimes they go outside with them for a drink, and they do know how they earn. And that we need to remember that the coffee it's also a business which grows from mouth to mouth. It's the expression here in Mexico. It's by the recommendation, and a regular customer only becomes regular and recommend the coffee shop if they hold a conversation with a barista that seems like it's earning enough to be a good professional. You can almost feel it in the way they work, they express, and they express about their own company, because baristas can complain with the customers too, and also they can express happiness to the customer, and you can make the difference with the salary. And finally, about how much the minimum wage in Mexico is like 150 USD a month, so it's not enough for anyone. We try to make that different, and as Paco said, sustainable. First, understanding this as a company in which maybe I'm the owner, but I have a salary too. I do not live how much the coffee sells. I have a salary which is equal to the marketing director, for example. She makes the same as I make, and we try to break the rule in the wage. My dream is to reach maybe the salary of a US barista. When I was once in Germany, I met a barista from Hungary, and she says that she makes 600 euro a month. This was like 10 years ago. So I start to think when we reach 600 euro a month in Mexico, it's like crazy. it's gonna be a good salary for a barista. So I aim for that during the development of my company, and now we can pay. We're paying maybe for the newbies, we're paying around 500 USD a month is the minimum for us. We have people earning 1,250 USD a month. So in that point, I think we're starting to be a responsible company with salaries that makes a difference against maybe other industries even, because even if you are a professional, for example, a graphic designer makes 600 USD a month. And if we can pay maybe 400, 500 USD for someone who only have like the a minimum scholarity, I think we are improving this part of the professionalism of the barista job. And maybe when these professionals went out of my company and look for another job, they're going to ask for this salary. And that's the way we infest the other coffee shops with the idea of a better wage, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting points. I think like oh yeah, go for it, Matt.
Very interesting, and what I must add to what we said earlier, that speaking from a coffee shop perspective, which is also the work that I'm coming from, I'm barista by trade, but it's working as a roastery and focusing on online business, and as we do on popular Italian style espresso blends with 20, 30, 40% Robusta. It's also going from mouth-to-mouth propaganda, but it's more scalable if it's only production and only online in the coffee shop. It's very difficult, and I've never experienced fair pay at a counter yet, working as a barista in Germany, and I've seen quite a few. The maximum that I made here as a barista at a counter was 12 euros per hour, and regular was like 10, something like that. But at the counter, I feel there's many factors that make it more difficult, like opening hours, for example. That's what I wanted to add to the difference in coffee shop and roastery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes absolutely sense. For me, like a really interesting piece, I think something you started to elaborate a lot closer into more detail was, Carlos, was like building that community. And I wanted to ask, like, what were your strategies, right? Because I think, Matt, you also mentioned this before, where, yeah, people value that, but I think that was it difficult in the beginning? And I don't know, like you said, you also joined later on. Do you know, like, some strategies or some ideas how, you know, to get that word out, to talk about it, and actually people really become like a fan or like a regular consumer, really carry that voice to their community? What were some ideas you've done with Quijote?
The promotion of Quijote Coffee in the beginning was very active over a coffee enthusiast platform called Caffeinets, which is the coffee net. Just aficionados, especially from Italian style espressos, are there, and Pingo communicated a lot in the beginning, Pingo and Steffi, the founders, and over there, by being very active in this area and mouth-to-mouth propaganda among the enthusiasts, because during that time, especially in the older days, when specialty was very fresh in Germany, there was not a lot around, and the ones that were around were super bright, like super Scandinavian style. So Quijote combined that specialty approach with also easy to drink coffee, so to speak. And in the beginning, also to delivering to coffee shops that have to make the coffee famous, so to speak. They give very good conditions to coffee shops, and also just be there for them. Also, kind of training if necessary or if wanted, so they can spread the word and build that regular customer base that will then start consuming on their own via the online shop.
So it's almost like finding like your niche, right? And like really going into that niche, communicating a lot to that. Very like it sounds very specific, almost like specific consumer group, right?
Exactly, and I think it's also it depends on the style of coffee, because a lot of high quality coffee is not necessarily easy to drink. So the consumer base gets smaller and smaller the more specialized it gets. But yeah, I would say 70–80% of the coffee we roast is very popular dark espresso blends. A
To the
medium roast
German taste.
espresso blend.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can put milk on it and it still tastes all right.
Yeah. What was that for you, like Andrew? Like building, you said it's a lot like with friends starting also the business with your spouse, and like it sounds also very community based, right? If you have a lot of your like closer friends working with you, was there like some, and also mentioning that it's like sometimes really difficult to use that as a marketing strategy. Did you have some particular ways of really targeting a community, building a community base?
Actually, is my microphone working, by the way? Because my
Yes.
screen.
Yeah.
Okay, great, awesome. Actually, it's not that dissimilar from what Matt was just talking about. We also, I would say that similar coffee style. Actually, we roast quite a bit darker than more traditional than a lot of our competitors here, at least in the specialty industry around the Twin Cities here. So we built our base kind of on a flavor profile for it, so to speak. Yeah, I think the experience is, what I'm trying to think. In some sense, it was hard to promote what we were doing because we've always been known to treat people well, even if we're changing our policies, right? So like the community expects that we're treating, because of actually much of what Carlos said, they talk to our baristas more than us. They come in and chat, and you can tell if someone's happy or not happy. And they go out to drinks with the baristas. So like this is a community. I think what became harder, and perhaps this is something I'm kind of listening now, and I'm wondering if this is something I could learn a little bit, is we tried to make the leaps. We tried to anticipate, like, and go further. So like in the Twin Cities here, there are coffee shops trying to pay more, and they're all doing their styles of it, and safe and sick time, and there's a good healthy competition to treat people better, which is a great competition to do, I think. And we would try to anticipate that, and a lot of times we hadn't built up a reserve of resources to that we would need to kind of like know that we were going to be out in this, we were going to be paying more for our employees before it was well known, and we were kind of hoping that the promo from it would pay it back. And I don't know if that was, in retrospect, now I'm 4 or 5 years older, I wonder if that was, I think it was the right thing to do. I wonder if it was the smart thing to do. And I hate when those two things are different. And so I don't like sitting there with that kind of contradiction. Like, I don't regret doing it at all, but I look back and say, what could we do better? So I don't know if that really answers the question. I'm struggling with this, like right as we're speaking, as we said at the counter, it's difficult. It's
totally.
And they're all doing the same work. Like they're all doing the same work, but they cost different amounts because they are different people, as we kind of talked about. And so, as they should, as we all should. So I'm thinking out loud as we go. I mean, one thing we definitely did away with was the tips. That was a big one, because that is a way that really created a lot of inequity for work. Like people cleaning the bathrooms at the shop at the end of the night made less money than people in the morning making coffee, and that we just decided like that can't be. All this work is important, which is something I've heard from Matt and Carlos both. Like, so we got rid of the tips and we evened the wages out so that like, hey, if you're here for an hour, if you're giving us an hour of your time, we should give you money for that. It doesn't matter what work you're doing because of that. Like if you're giving us your time, you deserve this money. So that was kind of one thing that we went through, and that was actually our first kind of step to kind of down the road. And then so I don't know. I'm curious to hear what people think about that. I'm actually something going on in the Twin Cities right now that I'm watching because our cafe isn't open, that I'm super fascinated by is because of COVID. Coffee shops having employees that did not feel taken care of during COVID, like with precautions and PPE and things. There's a unionizing effort.
Oh, interesting.
Amongst baristas. I mean, I wouldn't say it's widespread, but definitely restaurants, but coffee shops too. And I think that's really fascinating because it does get to the idea of the power dynamic and also provides political power to the baristas. Because what we've come to is like, we can't give power, we can't empower our baristas in the way that we would like to, A, because we're small, but B, because like, the better I treat my barista, the more they're kind of indebted to work for us. Because like, where else are you gonna go? Now I pay you 4 times more than everybody else. You really have to work here if you really wanna get that wage, and that's not why we're doing it, but it doesn't actually, it creates a good living environment, but it doesn't create a good power dynamic, and they still feel indebted. And so I'm fascinated by the kind of unionizing, because I really think it gets at that, which is, we were talking about the value chain, up and down the value chain, that could be very fascinating, I think.
Absolutely, yeah, totally. Super interesting. I'm not sure, Carlos, if you, oh yeah, or Matt. Yes, of course.
May I ask, Andrew, how you say you get rid of the tips? I don't understand how, because are the tips not up to you, right?
Yeah, so what we did, that's a really, that was probably our first step down the road, really interesting. So what we did was, I mean, we have a small staff. We had a meeting and we made a unanimous decision. So what we did was, it was a huge increase in price. That was probably one of our biggest price increases, right? As we shifted we took the tip jar away, right? And that was a unanimous decision. We actually waited months because we had brought it up a couple times and there was employees that were not comfortable with it. So we said, well, we can't do this unless everyone's comfortable. So, but we did at one point have everyone unanimous, and everyone ended up making more money because we also did a wage increase with it. But basically, yeah, there was no tips. The drinks were more expensive, and then there was no tip jar. And then so I mean, we were kind of we're all saying wages, and they're also different around the world. We were paying roughly, I want to say at that time, $12 an hour, which was better than average. Like if you worked at Starbucks, you would make less, for example. And plus tips. And then what we did was we had a huge spreadsheet. We figured out what is everyone actually making with their tips, and how can we make sure this works out that everyone benefits. And so we did, I want to say it was a 20% price increase. There's no tip jar. Everyone's wages went up more. So then the average wage was 14 or 14 plus an hour, which was more than everyone was really making with tips. But it also meant, like, from a business perspective, it meant I didn't have people not wanting to work the closing shift, which was really getting hard, and only wanting to work. So like, and I know there's other ways we could have done it. We did look at, like, we could have pooled tips, which is a thing, and then like split them out. But it just seems, from our perspective, more fair to just like most businesses, which is like, you pay for a product and then you ask the business to pay the employees. You don't ask the customers to pay the employees. In the United States, and I don't know if it's global, there's a huge amount of like sexual harassment that's involved in tips, and so there was multiple reasons to get rid of tips. And it's a power dynamic, right? It's people tossing in a dollar bill to say like, it can be nice. It's not always, but so that was why we did it. And that's how we did it.
Super
And so we just
interesting.
incorporated into the price, and that was our biggest step. And then it was just kind of a step up to 15. And 15 is really just because that's the wage people talk about. And it seemed legit, and we kind of looked at our employees and it seemed like, okay, let's just go there. And then everybody 15. And kind of like the Matt's company, which is when we can pay more for everybody, we'll increase the wage for everybody.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks for exploring or explaining it further. There is oh yeah.
You want to go ahead with the question on the chat?
Yeah, exactly. I thought so. Maybe Carlos, do you want to add something? If not, I'll.
Yeah, I want to add something. Yeah. I make the same decision as Andrews. I interview baristas, a lot of friends and customers, coffee shops who I provide coffee, and I talk with the baristas and find out what I labeled as the best paid barista I met, who won 500 USD a month and plus tips. And I was like, okay, I want that for my starting point on my company. So I worked for that. And then I find in the same position as Sandro with the tips, because maybe you don't know, but in Mexico, actually, the tip jar is illegal. I even have I got fined a few years ago by the instance of the government who regulates the service. The name is Profeco, and they put a fine on me because I don't have milliliters in the menu. I have ounces, and also because I have a tip jar. They say you cannot even suggest the tip to the customer in any way, not claiming about you want to add a tip, or not even with a tip jar. So it's weird. In the law, it says that you cannot suggest it, but everyone's making it. So I took the decision because I was forced to that, to take out the tip jar. And that started a pretty rough conversation between baristas, myself, and the customer, because customers start to put the money on the bar, on the counter, because they wanted to tip the baristas. And hey, where's your tip jar? And I'm gonna put the money here. And it intensifies this power dynamic, because it used to be like subtle, clink in a jar, and started to be like a hand on the counter with money. Where did I put this money, guy? And the barista is like, we don't have a tip jar. Why? You don't deserve it? You don't want it? It was pretty rough. So the baristas talk to me later and say, hey, bro, let's put the tip jar again. Just, we don't want the tips maybe, but we want to stop this kind of weird dynamic of power. And suddenly we start to get, because before this, the tips in my coffee shop were pretty low. It was like nothing. Maybe a barista makes $10 daily from tips. Even less, no, $10 a week. Yeah, it was weird. We don't have any tips. And after we put back the tip jar, after this like small period of time without it, people start to tip higher. And now the baristas have maybe every week 100 USD tips each week.
Wow.
It's better. So it makes a change, and now baristas are pretty happy. They don't have to deal with rough customers. And but at that point, I took my hands off the tips. I don't know anything about tips. It's their business. So I don't even know how much they make on tips. They manage their own tips. It's out of the salary, and it's kind of an independent income. I don't even know anything about it.
It's super interesting, Carlos. Yeah. Also super interesting outcome of that conversation, right? Of like that interaction between your employees, the customers, yourself. Really interesting. That's like increased a lot. Yeah. Interesting. There is also a good question from Kate in the chat we got. And she's asking, I'm working on figuring out a profit sharing bonus structure for management. Does anyone have any experience in this? And what do you offer? What do you offer, and how do you calculate it? And how often do you award it? So the question is around, so if your if your business is making profit, right? Do you have a structure to share any of those profits within your business structure, within your staff structure? And how do you do it, if you do it?
So
We haven't done it yet.
The easy answer.
Actually, my business, as you may realize, if you think a little bit, paying high prices to the coffee producers and with this kind of salaries, the profit is it's minimum. So what I mean with that is planification. In order of how much profit I make each year, I adjust salaries and coffee prices, just like that.
Mm.
So I keep it non-profit, but always improving salaries, maybe improving equipment, because that's an important part of how employees felt developing their skills and their work in the bar, and also improving prices for green coffee. Yeah. Also, we invest that kind of profit always in education, like sending our baristas to have like the SEAs, roasting level 1, level 2, barista certification, maybe competitions. And also for the producers, we invest the profits in, we don't work with huge farms. We only work with maybe one huge farm, but it's also one person. It's Sammy, is a good friend of mine. Paco knows him. And apart of him, we only work with smallholders. So we support them with maybe roya disease medicines, maybe with African beds for the drying process, grain pro bags, tools for the farm, because we think that improves the quality of the coffee we're going to buy. So we always invest in quality.
It's like almost like reinvesting any profits you make or any money you've left over back into the business within the people within the value chain, right?
Yeah.
Is that similar to you, Matt, and Quijote?
Because I that's the only way we can make this constant and have a solid relation with producers and with baristas.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Oh, sorry, there was like a little delay in the internet connection. Sorry, Carlos. I didn't want to cut you off. Yeah, like into those relationships, right, and improving them on the long term. That makes a lot of sense. Yes. Is that something similar you do, Matt, or how does that work with Quijote?
Yes, same here. Very similar to how Carlos described. We're investing the excess profit in the long-term relationship by asking how we can help. Can be beneficio or paying for a cupper, just a wage, and also increasing prices, maybe micro lots or competition within the association. Actually, we don't privatize the profit that is above the basic wage that we pay ourselves. We don't privatize it, but we use it to reinvest. Yes, to reinvest in the coffee. Project and origin, yes, and also to level out the working capital which is within the company. Yes.
And Andrew, you mentioned, thank you, Matt, for answering the question. Andrew, you mentioned that it's something you haven't really tried out. Oh, sorry.
Education, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't done an official profit sharing. We do similar, you know, like, well, like I said, if we had extra profit, we would talk about taking the wage up to 15.50 to 16. Invest it. Yeah, I mean, I don't often think of those as profit sharing, but it's, I guess it's true. I mean, profit sharing is just kind of a technical term, I guess. If you're not paying yourself the profit, we haven't paid ourselves the profit, so then we are investing it in something. So, and investing it in our local, we use a lot. I mean, we don't have coffee growing outside, but we do have dairy farms. So we talk a lot about our dairy farms, and that's a farm that we're more familiar with, you know, able to visit and stuff, and those kinds of products. So yeah, but the traditional profit sharing we haven't done with like managers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Mostly because we don't have a manager. It's just us and the employees.
Fair enough. Yeah. Thanks for sharing all your answers. Paco, do you have a final question, maybe? Just
Yeah,
looking at the
maybe a
time.
final question before we get to the hour mark. I would like to ask you guys, what do you think it has to happen first? Do you think you have to upper the wages first, or you have to, or the baristas have to show their skills at first, since they're the people, I mean, doing the work? What do you think has to happen at, first? And lead to that question, what do you think are, or what were the biggest obstacles you encountered providing a livelihood or a better income for all your staff? You want to go first?
Did you say Andrew? Sorry. Yeah. So as far as what comes first, you know, I think the wages come first. That was something that I would say over the last 15 years that we've been operating, I've definitely kind of like come around on, because I started in the traditional mode, which is like you start at a low pay and you work your way up and you show a skill and, you know, things like that. I think part of it is I've realized that the skill is actually more incumbent on me as the trainer than it is on, I mean, I get it, the person has to work hard, but I can train anybody to be a good barista. And it's no fair holding their wages back just because I'm not training them well. So they're giving me an hour of their time. They should be compensated with it. And so that's kind of the first thing. The obstacles, I think I kind of went into the obstacles. I think the real obstacle is kind of like that big, like, the business doesn't see our employees as individual. I see them because I'm working next to them, but the business doesn't see them as individual people, because they are produced, you know, like when I look at the profit and loss sheet, for example, it doesn't treat, you know, Jeff different than Sally. But they're in, as we discussed, they're in very different, they could be in really different situations. But the business is concerned with what they're producing, and what we're talking about is how they're living. And I think that conflict is the biggest obstacle, because like, can my business support having all my employees have kids? Or do I actually need some single people to support the wages of the people who have kids? Like, and is it sustainable? Is that what we're talking about? Sustainability, making sure you have enough single people in your thing to make sure that you can have a couple people with kids. It's not a super idealistic idea of sustainable, but I think that's just the nature of the business, and like, it's their business model. So that's a big obstacle, and it's why I'm super interested in this unionizing, because I think what you're talking about is a power dynamic, not like we're so bad. I think we're doing great. We're trying to be nice, but there's a structure in place that gives power to employers, a political structure, not at the shop, in the society. And I think that's what's interesting. I'm really interested in what a union could give my employees politically. So instead of asking me for something I can't afford because I'm too small or whatever, they should still have it though. So they should still have healthcare. I mean, I know in Germany they probably do, but in the United States they don't. But they should have healthcare, but I can't afford it. I can't even afford my own healthcare. So like, So like, I think that's sort of something interesting, and it's the biggest obstacle that I would list, and a conversation that I'm super interested in continuing. So I don't want to take up all the time. That's my thoughts.
Matt, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, very interesting, Andrew. That unionizing idea in the hospitality business is super unorthodox, but it would be very interesting to see what that could bring upon. Yes, when considering the question, what first, the wages or the skills? I would say first the wages are non-negotiable, are non-negotiable. It's nothing to negotiate. It's the same anyway. So concerning the skills, we focus more on the personal skill, personality skills, so to speak. If a person is good to work with, is open, and has that fire burning within them, I see very similar as Andrew. It's our job to pour oil into that fire, because people, it's amazing how quick people that are passionate about especially coffee make progress and become very professional within a short period of time. It's more about that mindset, working, training. So it's skill, say, yeah, skills first, but more like personal skills, because the coffee part, if the fire is burning, they will go through the roof very quickly. And the obstacles, I can't really say, because I entered Quijote at a stage when it was already thriving and very healthy. So I'm sure there were obstacles, but I didn't encounter them. Not here, yes.
Carlos, how about you?
Oof. I really think that, as Matt says, we also need to take care about personality. It's easier to teach how to make coffee than teach how to be a good person first. Then we, if we expect someone with a minimum wage to develop as a professional, we're gonna have to a chair to sit for a while, because they need to be safe first. So I think a fair wage is it's first to encourage developing as a professional. So you cannot. I mean, if your roaster uh, takes a certification and now he's a Q grader, for example, you can put a little higher wage, but at first he needs a good base to start developing abilities to reach a better wage. And I think the most complicated part there is first the rotation of the people. Maybe in coffee shops, I don't know in Germany and US, but in Mexico, baristas spending more than 2 years in the same company, it's pretty weird. So they don't reach this moment of wage rising sometimes. So maybe some of the owners don't even prepared for that because they haven't experienced it, professional growing in their own companies. And also another obstacle, it's the for increasing wages is the law, because as Paco may know, in Mexico, we don't have also like health care. We need to pay for that, but we have like a government healthcare that the employers need to pay, which is like social security. And but it gets higher, but weird higher, uh, in order of the salary of the employee. So, for example, I used to have an employee who I make the experiment. who makes 18,000 pesos a month, like 900 USD a month. And I almost paid for Social Security for that barista, 250 USD a month. So it's huge. And believe me, that's not a really good healthcare. It's pretty shitty healthcare because it's like the government healthcare. But we need to pay it because it's the law, you know. So that's difficult for the employers because you need to pay a lot of things just to have them as employee, and that reduces your budget to pay wages, and they go directly to the government. That's the weird part. So I try to trick that, uh, having a good base, like reported to the government, and the other maybe I gave it as a productive bonus maybe for the government, but it's part of the salary. It's they make it monthly, but I manifest it to the government in a different way. I hope they are not listening this, otherwise I'm gonna have they're knocking at my door. But it's the only way I can pay 1,000 USD a month without going my company to break, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting insights. Just looking at the time, we already had like an hour conversation just
Can I
passed
just say
by.
something I really
Oh, of
like that
course.
Carlos
Go
said?
for it.
I just
Yes.
really, I mean, and I really think it was a great, like, the employees need security. Like, in, you know, in the United States, and I know globally, we're talking about safety, public safety, and like feeling safe and what it means to feel safe. That's a great starting point, and I think that's kind of like what it all revolves around, and I loved hearing that. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wanted to thank you all for joining and being open, transparent, sharing your insights, your thoughts, insights into your businesses, which I thought was really, really interesting. And the hour just passed really, really quickly, right? Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Carlos. Also, thank you, Paco, for co-hosting. For everybody that's listening, I just wanted to also briefly point out this was part of a 4-season miniseries, right? So we have also 3 more episodes that evolve around the livelihood, living wage, living salary conversation. You can all rewatch also this one on the Barista Guild YouTube channel. So if you just go to YouTube and type in Barista Guild, you will end up on our channel. You can rewatch all the conversations. It was a huge pleasure having you. I thought it was really interesting, all your insights and perspectives. Thank you so much for coming on board and sharing. Yeah, fantastic. Loved it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Have a great
Bye.
day, and hopefully see you somewhere soon in the coffee world, right? When it's,
Yeah, right.
we'll see. We'll get there.
Thank you.
Looking
Bye-bye.
forward. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.